The topic of today is, what do you do if you feel entitled to your child's physical affection, meaning you want to be able to give them hugs and kisses and they don't want to? Do you still have the right to give them hugs and kisses or expect them to give you hugs and kisses? Is there a line between parents and anyone else? So I received this question through a DM on Instagram from someone who had a very heated debate with their family member about this topic. The family member felt that because they are the birth mother and is the one who loves this child, has no ill intentions, wants to give them love and affection, that they are entitled to give them hugs when they please. And even if the child may not want it, they're still going to impose hugs on them. So they felt that this was a very innocent thing to do. There's nothing wrong with it. They are, after all, the mom. They even actually included husband and grandparents in there as all people who would be allowed to show this kind of affection without having to ask. So the person who messaged me felt very strongly that this is not okay and wanted to get some advice. Now, of course, I am on board with the person who messaged me because I agree we are not entitled to our child's bodies. And regardless of whether this is well-intentioned or not, there are a lot of unintended consequences that come from this. And so today I wanted to talk about what those are and why it's important that no parent ever feels that they are entitled to and can do as they wish to give affection to their child. So let's start with the fact that consent, which is something that this person, this family member, still felt that they were teaching their child. I teach my child about consent and I teach my child that their body belongs to them, but yet are not actually walking the walk and acting the part of teaching them, right? Our kids learn by example. So number one, it's important that if we are teaching about consent, that we are respecting what's called body autonomy. And body autonomy means that nobody, not even your parents, are allowed to touch you or have any physical contact with you if you do not agree and have given consent. Now there are, people think, well, there's a lot of gray area there because if my child is an infant, of course I need to touch them and I can't be asking my child for consent when they are 1 year old and they can't speak back and, give consent. Now, of course, in infancy, children, of course, need their mothers to help them physically, but it is also something that they can teach as their child is nonverbal yet, but can still understand physical language, the tone of your voice, the intention with which you are doing things. And so as the child grows up, this is where parents may think, well, my intention is still good and my intention is still that I want to care for my child and give them good things and show them love and affection, right? But our children go through different phases. From infancy to toddlerhood, they are learning. This is where autonomy starts becoming a thing. This is where it is budding. This is where it is evolving, growing, and becoming an actual thing where children are starting to want that autonomy, that independence. And so we have to start learning how to respect that, how to be able to communicate that. And this is where we're talking about specifically, right? When children can start to vocalize, and I mean, even in infancy, they can still communicate when they don't want to be touched. If another person is holding them, they start crying, that means they very clearly don't want that person to be holding them, right? So children can communicate. As they get more sophisticated with their language, they of course can start to voice more clearly. And this is the perfect opportunity for us to start teaching about consent. Now, with body autonomy, it means that they have the right to say who and when and where a child, another person can interact with them physically and for how long. So that also teaches that consent can be withdrawn at any time. Just because I said that I wanted to hug you yesterday or allow you to hug me yesterday doesn't mean that I want to allow you to hug me today. I am allowed to do and what I wish and please with my own body. And so when we teach this, we also have to respect that as parents, right? It doesn't mean that just because we birthed them or we are the biological mother or father that we can just cross that boundary, right? Because we are sending mixed messages. Now, autonomy means that we are not just going to say your body belongs to you and strangers should not touch you, and I am someone who loves you, therefore it's okay for me to touch you, because this has a lot of unintended consequences For example, if in the grooming process, which is what predators do and use to be able to access a child, a lot of parents have this misunderstanding that it's going to be just some random stranger who's going to come and try to do something to your child. And then that's when they're going to go, hey, wait a minute, I didn't give consent to this. It's actually through people that they learn to love, that they learn to trust, that they learn to respect. And if you have been giving this mixed message that someone who loves you is allowed to give you physical affection, and now this person who's been grooming them has also manipulated that conversation to say, well, I'm doing this because I love you and I want you to feel good. And obviously to the child, it's like, well, it doesn't feel good and I don't think this is right, but I've been taught all my life that someone who loves me and cares for me is allowed to do what they wish with my body. So long term, this can have very unintended consequences that are, of course, damaging and negative and dangerous. So that's number one. But even as they get older, if nothing like that were to happen in childhood, even as they get older, what they are learning essentially is that if somebody loves them, and even though they don't want that physical affection, that other person is continuing to still give them that physical affection, and you've never been given the right to say no or to stop that person, then you learn to accept things that are not necessarily in your best interest, that you like, enjoy, feel good about, but you do it because you want to please that other person. So if that other person is saying, well, I'm doing this in the name of love, even if they're beating you, or it's some kind of abusive relationship, whether it's physical, mental abuse, and it's in the name of love, you have gotten this messaging all your life that this person loves me, they're hugging me, even if I don't really want this hug, but because they love me, I should allow them to continue to do that. On the flip side of that, you could grow up to be the type of person that feels entitled to give love and affection to someone, even if they are showing that they don't necessarily want it. So on the other end, you could become the person who is actually unintentionally abusing and crossing boundaries because you have not learned that no means no, that I have the right to my own body, that you have the right to your own body. Just because someone says that they love you or they're a family member or they're very close means that they have the right to cross that boundary. And so we're teaching it on both sides of the coin, right? So the other thing that you are also teaching when you cross those boundaries with your children, even if you're the parent, is you're teaching the child to learn to ignore their own feelings. So I don't really want to be touched right now, but I guess that doesn't really matter because my personal boundaries just don't get respected. So I'm just going to ignore what I'm feeling of discomfort, of not wanting to reciprocate, of having to just accept this physical contact. So you're teaching your child to ignore their own feelings, their own intuition, their own gut instincts. And this can again be dangerous when it is with someone who has obviously created this really beautiful foundational relationship and then cross that boundary if they are a predator. So it literally set up your child for boundary violation if you are not being clear on this. So it's really important that we not just say your body belongs to you, but we are actually reinforcing it through our own actions and respect of our children's boundaries. Those are some really important reasons. We want to say not just your body belongs to you, but that your body is yours for your own pleasure. So what we are also teaching by not respecting those boundaries and giving affection is that their body is there for the pleasure of others and not for their own. So this is another really important thing to think about, is that we are teaching them that their body and the way that they interact in the world is for other people's pleasures. So one of the arguments that this person had with their family member is that that person said, well, I don't want them to suddenly be rude. And now obviously the people that are in their lives, grandparents, husband, father, mother, are obviously giving them affection because they love them. And if they start to not reciprocate that, well, then that's kind of rude. So essentially what they're saying is your body is there for other people's pleasures. And if you are not willing to give other people that pleasure, well, then you're not a nice person, right? And so that's the shame that kind of gets built into it if they stop reciprocating affection. So is that the message that you really want to send to your child about their own autonomy? So I'm just going through my list here and make sure that I've got everything that I wanted to talk about. receiving and giving affection for the sake of others, as I just mentioned, feeling like as a parent that you can impose your will, that that child's physical body belongs to you. At what age do they stop belonging to you? Is it because they reach 18 and now they're an adult and now their body no longer belongs to you? So up until that time, you are allowed to do that. What kind of messaging is that about the child's own body, that it doesn't belong to them ever until they reach a certain age, and then all of a sudden they are autonomous? So is that what you are saying? Is that what you are teaching your child? There are lots of different things, obviously, that, I just listed at least 3 different ways that this can be damaging to your child's sense of self and sense of autonomy and feeling an obligation to please others. So what that sets them up for in life is people pleasing, codependency. There are lots of things that long term this is damaging. So I wanted to make sure that you understand it from some different, more complex areas that are maybe not thought about initially. When we talk about consent, we think about just the body safety piece. We think about, oh, well, I'm teaching them about stranger danger and I'm teaching them to say no to other people. But the people who tend to abuse children are the ones that have taken the time to create relationships that seem caring, affectionate, that they've taken the time to build trust with the child to make sure that they have a solid foundation of trust that they can then start eroding. Again, that's the short term. This is what could happen when a child is young, but then also think about the long term. What is that setting them up for in their long-term relationships as adults? So I hope that this was enough to make you think about and change your perspective on whether you feel that you're entitled to affection and to your child's body. So if you have any questions about this, if you disagree, if you have other arguments, I would absolutely love to know what else I can answer for you, how else I can help you see this perspective better. And post in the comments, do you have any family members that you have this same argument with? Please feel free to send it their way and let them hear from me what the problems are with this kind of perspective and thinking. So thank you for watching. Again, I'm Rosalia Rivera for About Consent. If you need more information about how to teach your kids about body boundaries and body safety and consent, feel free to download my free guide, 7 Ways to Teach Body Safety, Boundaries, and Consent, and you can find that below. I've posted it here so you can download it. Okay, my friends, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day or evening whenever you're watching this. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.